Got a new bandsaw blade, 1/2 inch rather than the 3/8. So this is free-handed and a pencil line. Pretty damn close to perfect. Not wanting to waste any of this coastal redwood, I've got a 80mm radius out here, and I'll get something smaller out of this. This bandsaw comes without a crank on the tensioning knob. I never detensioned this, although I do my sawmill all the time, except when I forget. But to detension this is approximately 5 turns with this knob, which was difficult, so I made a crank. Now it's easy. Now, what can I get out of this? Okay, this is going to be red and white. There's about a 4.5 inch blank. This will be the bottom, of course. Here's the wedding cake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't wait to get started on these. This wood has been drying outside for a year and a half, but in coastal Oregon, that's not saying much. I'm going to put those in the microwave. Microwave drying essentially consists of short periods of microwave heat, long periods of cooling and drying, checking the weight every time, and doing it over and over again until weight loss becomes negligible. This little blank is too small for a faceplate, too large to fit any of my chucks, so I put it on a worm screw. Using the tailstock was probably not necessary, but it's there, so why not? If I'd made a tenon, I'd have to shorten the bowl, and it's already pretty short as it is. So I made a shallow mortise. I used the sharp point of the detail gouge to clean out the corner of the mortise. I made a slow, light cut that I hope would be a finishing cut. I got rid of most of the torn grain, but it still needs a little more work. The movement of the gouge is downhill, but the angle of the shear cut is uphill against supported grain. There's still a little torn grain. A little more shear scraping now will save a lot of sanding later. Still have some torn grain to deal with. The surface is pretty smooth, so I started sanding with 320. There's still one little patch of torn grain. I brush off dust to reveal remaining defects. Still that one little spot. I'll try a trick I learned from
Kent Weekly's Turn-A-Wood bowl channel. Wood glue in the crack or defect, then sand lightly over it, and the sanding dust will combine with the glue and fill the defect, if it works. I spend a lot more time sanding, but we'll jump ahead. The dry, porous redwood soaks up a lot of sanding sealer.
Got to turn the camera on. Sanded sanding sealer and sanded 400. Time for X. As I put a little alcohol over this.
I clean off all the dust with denatured alcohol and let it spin dry. First acts abrasive sanding paste.
About 600, 550.
After the surface feels smooth, wipe it all off. And check to be sure you got it all off with a white cloth or a paper towel.
See a little something coming by right here. It's not shiny, it's not really torn out, it's just not perfectly smooth. I think I'll handle those imperfections now because it's impossible later.
I sand the rough spot with 320.
This might be where I use the glue.
Here we go again.
Okay, it's a hair rough right here. You can feel it coming back this way. This is 400, just in that spot.
I spent a few minutes sanding with 400 grit on that rough spot where I put in the glue patch.
Okay. When I first began doing this, I wouldn't bother with details like this, to my regret later. Just got to practice. Why waste time on making it as nearly perfect as I can? And then I'd get to the end and say, dang, this turned out pretty nice. Except for these defects I did not take care of when I had the chance. Lesson learned. I can still see the rough spot right here. Right here. And here. I think that's the best it's going to get, so here we go.
Axe instructions say, after applying the wax, turn the RPM up high enough that you can generate heat and melt the carnauba wax into the wood.
About 1300.
For the first few months after I began using axe polish, I used a paper towel to wipe off residue at the same high speed I used to generate heat to melt the wax in. I've stopped doing that, turned the speed way down to wipe off residue, I don't want to be melting the wax off onto the paper towel. And no, I don't know that it makes any difference.
Shiny, shiny, not shiny, not shiny. I'll put some more of this on there and let it set up. Some X says that's not necessary, but can't hurt.
I put on a second coat of wax, hoping to get rid of the few dull spots. Then I went off to do something else for a while.
Well, I've sanded and polished again. I still got what looks like bleached out areas here. What I'm going to do is take it all the way down again, start over. I'm not good with this cube, not comfortable with this cube.
I needed to learn to use the skew and be confident with it, but I didn't want to practice on this little bowl.
I'm not going to use it.
I went back to my half-inch bowl gouge. The first thing I did was sharpen the gouges. I shear scraped it with a bowl gouge, but forgot to turn the camera on. The mortise was not deep to begin with. After reshaping the bottom, I had to cut a new mortise deeper. And then the entire sanding routine again.
Next day. No more bark, except for that little fleck. Got a lot of fine dust there I need to save. For repair jobs later.
Sanding sealer had dried overnight. I sanded it lightly with 320 and 400 and then decided instead of wax, this time I'd use polyurethane.
I'm going to go straight to urethane.
After the urethane had dried overnight, I buffed it with a white Scotch-Brite pad, put on a second coat, let that dry till afternoon, buffed it, and now it's time for a third coat.
Let that spin dry.
This is the first time I've used Axe abrasive and Axe polish over polyurethane. The abrasive paste alone made the urethane shine. I was eager to see what the wax would do to it. I like that. I've got to remember the Axe treatment on top of urethane. The bowl had been on that worm screw so long, it thought it belonged there and did not want to come off. The chuck came unscrewed from the spindle. I needed both hands for the bowl, and that required a little ingenuity. The bottom would have looked better with a shallower mortise, but after all, it's the bottom. Using the tailstock for support with such a small bowl was not only unnecessary, it was in the way. I didn't yet own a fingernail grind spindle gouge, and I hadn't yet learned how useful scrapers are for hollowing a bowl, so I used my square end carbide to establish the rim and wall thickness. I'd used carbide tools only a little, thinking a purist should stick to steel tools, but I experimented and used the round one to see what it would do. It removed material more smoothly, more easily than the square one. I soon went back to my favorite, the half-inch bowl gouge. Don't want to go any deeper. Lots to take out here. I didn't want a square bottom corner, so the round carbide was the only tool I had that would do the job. I switched to the rounded square on the other end to even out the bottom. I used my finger against the tool rest as a guide to get a straight line across the bottom. I used the carbide on its side as a shear scraper to smooth the rim. I mark the high spots with a pencil and use a skew as a scraper to smooth them out. The round carbide is the only tool I have to make a decent transition between wall and bottom. Finally, time for sanding the inside.
150.
Denatured alcohol to clean off the dust now. Sanding sealer. And after that had dried for a few hours, urethane.
That'll remember if that's 3 or 4 coats in here, but I think it's as nice as it's going to get.
Axe abrasive paste.
Okay, that's clean.
The abrasive paste gives the urethane quite a shine, but I put on wax to make it even shinier. I turn up the speed as I get close to the center where the wood's not moving as fast.
That's 1700. Well, I'm happy with that. Need lots of urethane. And lots of polishing. That's kind of a nice little bowl. So this is what they call a key bowl or catch-all bowl. It was nice on a bedside table. So you can put the things you have in your pockets when you go to bed at night. Coins, keys maybe, eyeglasses. So it's all right there when you get up in the morning.
I think I'm starting to get the hang of this.
I really am starting to get the hang of this.